the employee already knows about it, what's happening. Organization also knows about what's happening. So what's this fuss about of having appraisal or feedback? Both know each other. So is it some way that organization themselves did not know how to design it, and the poor feedback that you're getting is basically a manifestation of poor design of entire work by the organization? Do you agree or not agree? I mean, just have a let's take sides, or then be nice and say that okay, I think this is also true. This is also true, in kind of yeah.
So, firstly, I think if it comes as a surprise to the employee that I did not perform well while I was thinking I was a superstar, then clearly there is something wrong with the process. Very few instances of something seriously wrong with the employee who's the person in question, but mostly it is the process which is at fault, where it came as a surprise. Okay. Having said that, every employee comes to the office to do a good job. Everyone believes that he is doing a very good job. Okay, and it's those challenges outside his control that are leading to his underperformance, and therefore a regular feedback helps bridge that understanding gap. So I think what Palit said, we call it Palit, said about the whole process being fair, well known, and following that process is very important. In most cases, in the heart of my heart, I know how much I contributed, where do I stand, and therefore, if there is a manager who's transparent, who's able to communicate what was expected beginning of the year, and then through the year, having those conversations regularly, the person should know where he or she stands. Okay, so I think if in any situation it comes as a surprise, unless the employee is acting, there is something wrong with the process.
Again, I mean, what we are trying to measure over here is, are we measuring the KPIs, what they are given in terms of a particular number, or the effort and the behavioral and other aspect of it in a way? See, many of the times people might be in let's say in a sales role, okay, and I'm talking about a large kind of a project-based kind of an organization where you sell a project, a large project, and of course, not every time it will be in your favor. And as a seller, that person may not be at fault. Okay, there are various other factors where do happen essentially. Now, how do you evaluate that from a perspective of if you look at the seller book, he has performed everything absolutely to the way it should be. Okay, or maybe even better than that, but we still didn't get the deal. Okay, now is it? Shall I give him whatever in a scale of 1 to 3? Shall I give him 3? Shall I give him 2? Or when it's a kind of a and that's the reason I'm saying that there will be ambiguities from that standpoint. In some of the cases, definitely probably around large 2/3 of the cases, yes, the employee probably will know that whether I'm performed very well or performed very poorly. But there will be ambiguities, specifically in few roles and few particular area or industry, let's say. There will be ambiguities definitely, and probably the 1/3 or maybe around 25% of that will go through that ambiguity. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, there are large chunk will know whether it will not come as a surprise.
We're all working with people. It's not a machine. And handling those emotions are very, very important. In a real life, of course, everybody knows how they're faring. But everybody has different aspirations in life also. Some people may be gunning for CXO level positions. Some people just say, okay, I'm happy where I am because I have a work-life balance. Or some people may be in another state of being that, listen, I'm just experimenting and I've still not figured out what I want to do in life professionally. So everybody has a context, everybody has an emotion. And depending on the context and the emotion, conversations are really, really important. Because and every one of us, no matter how brilliantly we perform, everybody still likes appreciation, a pat on the back, a little bit of a motivational thing. Hey, you're doing well, Even if you're the CEO, you say, hey, listen, you've done a damn good job. And he knows it, but he'll still smile. We're human. So it is, while everything is more or less known, sometimes we all need is a pep, a pat on the back, a nudge in the right direction. Sometimes we may have personal issues which are overshadowing a professional kind of thing. I may want to talk to somebody and get it out of my system. It is also important to understand if there are blips in performances. Is it external to the company? Is the person going through something? Because finally, this is also a war for talent, for good talent. And if you have them loyal to you because they know you genuinely care for their welfare, I think you've done a lot of retention work. I'm sure you know the statistics, professor, better than anybody else. Almost 70% resignations happen because of bad bosses. So that's really what sets the difference between a caring organization, organization. It's not so much about the money. Money is important, but every good professional will get 30-40% hike. But there also has to be somewhere the shoe is pinching. And if we can give them comfortable shoes, I think, or stand by them when the times are the toughest, I think we will have great people with great outcomes, largely.
I'll just add to one point what you talked about. See, it's very important that every person doesn't have a similar career aspiration. Typically, we look at person joining an organization or a career and gradually moving up to a CXO position. It's a kind of a linear growth. That's normally being looked at, celebrated also, but not necessarily. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't want to get into that journey. They do enjoy the horizontal role. And in my organization, and I have worked a lot with this kind of individual where my clients value those people a lot because the kind of thing what they bring in. Now, how do we, but that's not the normal curve. I mean, that's what, as I said, we don't celebrate that. Okay. But probably they bring more value to the organization than many of the person who has moved up. So again, these are those aspects also need to be considered that way.
So aspirations, even if it's a facade, it's about emotions, right? Because we're all emotional.
So it's very subjective. Like everyone is right in their own sense. Because, they are humans we are dealing with. They're not, products that we are dealing with. Emotions are there. Background is there. Family is there. Personal, professional, capability, attitude, everything adds up to it. And that's why we see that, whenever there's a head of an organization, it's only one. It's like a pyramid. There are many below and there's one on top. So it's like, those who are open to feedback, those who work upon that feedback, and I wouldn't say thick-skinned. That's the wrong way to say it. Like, emotional and thick-skinned. Like, the person who's taking the feedback may not be thick-skinned, may be very emotional, but would be open to feedback and to work upon that feedback and to move ahead. So, like, there are multiple factors and it's subjective with each person because, like we say, every person is different. So, we cannot, put everyone on the same platform. So, all of them go hand in hand. And that's why, like everyone is saying, and I totally agree to it, that both these factors need to coexist. The regular feedbacks as well as the yearly. However, in the present times in the Gen Z, we see that, they change jobs very frequently. So sometimes an annual performance review doesn't happen. Before that, they are gone. So, so it's very important that the regular feedback is in place. Not like previously when, and it's a changing world, and every sector has to keep evolving with the evolving times and the changing world.
So if I can quickly summarize and sort of move ahead. So if you know somebody is sensitive. If you don't know the person, he or she is thick-skinned. So anything, you would like to add that she's saying that it all depends whether you understand the person holistically.
It's the attitude of that person towards something. It's that it's not about thick-skinned and being, emotional.
What I'm also trying to say is probably if you understand the person holistically, you understand where the person is coming from, the context, understand the emotions and so on and so forth, then it's easy to manage, right? And sometimes
But does that happen in an organization?
Yeah, that's a question.
Does that happen? Are we working there or are we trying to understand everyone? It's like while we are working, how much we are able to understand.
For someone to be in a position to give a feedback, why are they selected to give a feedback? They rise to the occasion and they grow to that level that they become eligible to give that feedback. And organization, I think it's the merit in the process and its implementation, the way it is implemented, to identify the people who can actually play that role. That's why those people are put into that role. As she said, the pyramid. Not everyone gets to the top of the pyramid. People who constantly evolve and they adapt to the situation and then they help other people grow. Those are the ones who move to the so I think it's not about being thick-skinned or being sensitive, but I think over here the onus lies on the person who's giving the feedback. How sensitive he is to the requirement of the person whom he is giving the feedback.
So we started with you. We'll end with you.
There are many thoughts that's coming to my mind. Now, again, why would we do all of this? In my opinion, it differentiates between a performer and a non-performer, and trying to spot talents for futures. That's what we try to do. Now, if we want to do that, I think the process has to be highly transparent. Because we are dealing with humans, we has to ensure that we are equitable and fair to everybody. Now, having said that, I know that the performance management process, appraisal process is not free of biases. There are, so in order to minimize the boss or the person who is doing the appraisal, don't indulge in such things like, favoring some individuals. We have to make this process as transparent as possible. You don't have to wait for the whole year. If someone is performing, the whole team knows that someone is doing good. And if someone is laggard, and as sir, I agree with, when you give feedback, that individual knows that he may not accept on the face of it, on the surface of it, but then he or she knows that he is struggling. Now, that is where the leader's role comes in. You have to try to kind of, handhold that person, try to kind of, whatever, mentoring, or send him to some training programs or upgradation of skill or some other department. I have found that. I have seen in my 34 years, if someone is struggling in one department and, some sixth sense told me that, he may be good in that area, and that switch has helped. That person has transformed himself. So all of that, all of us have seen all of that. So that my point again, it has to be transparent. I must, stand tall in front of that person comes back to me. Why have you rated me 3? I should have, honestly, I should have adequate points to counter, substantiate that these are the things. And I have told you several times. And again, I come back to my points. The whole process, the engagement level, engagement with the individual. What is the objective? My objective is not to give him 3 and make him suffer. No. And you see, we have to also find ways to compensate people. There are many ways you can give compensation, not just by giving increments and performance linked incentives or BPPs or whatever. There are many ways you can, kind of send that person for a holiday or something like that. If that person on the spot kind of thing, if he has shown that he has the tenacity or capacity to improve and perform, that's all. There are many ways one can do that.